Hey, welcome back to another Noria webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the dirty little secrets of contamination control. And this is a segment that so many people really miss the mark on. And it's nothing new. I mean, everyone understands the dangers of contamination, the problem that it leads to, not only within your equipment, but within your lubricants. But we have got a great panel together today of leading experts here in the field of contamination control. So, of course, I'm Wes Cash with Noria. You've seen me on several webinars before, but let's go down and meet our panelists here. So, Chad, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Chad Bertrand with Chevron. I manage our reliability sector. So what that means is I oversee our IsoClean certified lubricants program, as well as our LubeWatch oil analysis program. So been with Chevron roughly 23 years in a variety of different roles, and really excited to be with you all today.
So Bernie?
Yeah. Thanks, Chad. Yes, Bernie Hall. I'm the manager of Check Fluid. We've been in business for about a little over 20 years, but our main focus is providing sampling valves to getting the very best samples that can be used basically to make those very good decisions. So it is something that our focus is to really complement a lot of the gentlemen that are here today, focusing on the cleanliness aspect.
And Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Yeah, I'm Mark Barnes. I'm the Senior Vice President of Desk-Case Reliability Services. So Desk-Case is a manufacturer of products as well as services to deliver holistic contamination control to lubrication systems throughout different industries. So I manage a team of lubrication SMEs that actually support our customers delivering holistic lubrication solutions and services. So it's good to be here.
Yep, I think that we've got this segment covered right here, right? Because we think about it, we've got kind of cradle to grave. We've got new lubricants showing up, right? Cleanliness. We've got how we're going to monitor them, what's going on with sampling. And then, of course, we've got ideas and practices to put in place to not only restrict contaminants, but also remove them once they get in. So absolutely. I feel like we're fairly qualified here to talk about the topic. And, of course, I want to give a special thanks to Chevron for bringing this webinar to us. All right, so the first topic that we're going to get into here is the significance of lubricant cleanliness and contamination control. So, I mean, if someone asks you, why should we invest in this? Why is this a big deal? You know, what is going to be your response to that simple question? So, Chad, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but you know, when I think about it, a peace of mind comes to mind, because if you start clean with your lubricants, you can know that your equipment is going to run longer and run more reliably. The percentage out there is like 82% of our failures due to contamination, and that's huge. So if you've got contaminants getting into your equipment through your lubricant, it's going to build up over time, and it's going to cause major problems. So instead of getting 2 years out of that hydraulic pump, or you may instead of 14 years, and you just think about the cost associated with that. So contamination is a major industry topic. I know a lot of the OEMs now, they have cleanliness standards that we are striving to meet with our IsoClean program, and that's really, when you think back to when we started with IsoClean, that's kind of the genesis of it, is the OEMs really getting involved with cleanliness of lubricants, understanding what that means, connecting the dots, and us being there to provide a solution, because a lot of companies, they try to do filtration on their own, and they some are successful, but they're not experts in it, and that's why we've got these folks here with Bernie and Mark on the stage with me. And so we want to start clean, and then with a Desk-Case and Check Fluid help you stay clean. And so it's really important that we identify those starting points, and with IsoClean we can do that and really help control that contamination.
All right. So, Chad, obviously that makes sense. You know, at Noria, we talked that, you know, the cost of excluding a gram of dirt is about 10% of what once it gets in. So if we can start clean, right when it's showing up, saves us a lot of time and effort with filtration. So I like that. Bernie, what do you think? Significance?
Going on that basis, I like that statistic you threw out as far as the that 10-to-1 ratio. That is something that really kind of hits home with a lot of folks about the idea of being in a position where you've got so much more opportunity and so much less stress, as Chad pointed out. The whole holistic approach I think is really why we're here today, is to get that message across, is that it is a collective approach that we've got to do. And obviously from a check fluid standpoint, we feel that it's important to be able to measure success, because a lot of times it's the people side of things that really just weigh in so much to the overall process. People understanding the idea of clean. I mean, we all kind of grew up as kids, clean, but it is something a lot of times I think we forget it when we hit the shop floor, and the idea people like clean generally. I think that's the impression that we've got. And when you actually take the samples, majority of cases, they're going to come back without those alarms. But we know that from the information that we've got back from a lot of our customers, that they're struggling in some cases when they're doing the analysis to really be able to get to say, okay, this is what we see as trending, and we know kind of where we can be in terms of cleanliness, and what steps that we need to do, what steps that with the Descase products and the IsoClean product, what we need to do to bring that forward and to give the folks the chance to make it happen, to make it clean.
And I think you bring up, and you're kind of touching on this, contamination control, kind of cleanliness is everyone's responsibility. Everyone has a kind of stake in the game. It's not just the lube tech that's going out there, or the mechanic, or anything else. I mean, there are so many people that are involved in this process.
Exactly. And I think it is definitely a culture, and it's so nice if you can get the champions, you get the people that kind of understand that message, that can communicate that to the organization as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now, Mark, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, as Chad said, if you look at statistics, 82% of hydraulic failures are contamination related. Look at rolling element bearings, depending on the study you read, anywhere from 25 to 50%. So, every asset, whether it's a small rolling element bearing and a grease lubricated pillar block, or a large hydraulic system, they all suffer from contamination, right? Mm-hmm. I think what most people fail to recognize is it's not just contamination as we see it, but contamination that's not really visible, right?
Sure.
We think about the size of contaminants. We're talking about particles that are typically, let's say, a 0.5 micron to 10 microns. We'll talk about water. It's not an inch of water on the bottom of the gearbox. It's less than 1/3 of an ounce in a 5-gallon sump. That's going to reduce your gearbox life by 50%, right? So I think you guys do a great job, and we try and educate our customers similarly that you've got to think about contamination in terms of not chunks of grains of sand that you can physically feel, or water that's raining down on the machine. You've got to take a deeper dive, right? We've all become familiar over the course of the last, to call it 2 or 3 years, N95 mask. None of us knew what that meant 3 years ago, right?
Right.
I've been using that all the time because the viruses, bacteria, those are the size of particles we're trying to exclude from our oils. And that's why, taking a holistic approach, starting with clean oil through Chevron, and using products that ourselves and other companies provide, that really helps control those very small particles and very small levels or low levels of water in the oil. You've got to focus on that.
Yeah.
Because the visible eye can only see 40 microns, and so we're measuring at 4, 6, and 14. So that gives you some sense of what you're talking about. It's not the stuff that you can see on the ground. It's microscopic. You need a microscope to see it, and that's what's causing the damage inside your equipment.
And lubricating film within a rolling element bearing, that's 1 micron or less.
Exactly.
Right? So even 4 micron particles are too big at that point. Yeah. So, all right. So, like we talked about earlier, contamination control is not a new topic whatsoever. Why are we still missing the boat? What are some of the things that you feel like people just don't quite understand? They're just not getting it. And Bernie, I'll probably start with you on this one. What do you think?
Well, I think that the starting point from what we can see is the idea of getting somebody that kind of gets that message, that has been trained, has been educated to understand that a little bit more comprehensively, and explaining, similar to what Mark had said, what Chad said, about that concept that you're not going to see, it's not going to be readily visible or observable, which everybody loves. Everybody loves that tangible thing. Wow,
sure.
we can feel the dirt, but that's not, that message has to go beyond that particular level into an area where you're getting into that microscopic area, the varnishes and all the things that really can make, play havoc. And, I like some of the comments that Mark had made in terms of like water in a system. That contamination part of it is a lot of times just passes over, and people just don't get that understanding. So I think that the number one thing is communicating that message as broadly as is necessary, and that's both up and down.
Sure.
I mean, whatever levels it is, because I think in some cases management doesn't get it, and they're the people that are writing the check. They're the people that are really having to understand it. And where we've seen a lot of success is where you've got some of the upper level people that really understand that, and and again, that's also dollars. So it's the one thing that I would encourage as people are starting in on these programs is to document success.
Sure.
That's one of the things that I think is really, in a lot of cases, is missing. We do a great job. We clap ourselves on the back, and then at that particular point, we walk away. But the organization as a whole, or key individuals, need to know that these are successes that we've been able to achieve, and what the outcomes might have been if they hadn't been undertaken.
Sure.
The clean oil, the remedial products that
the impact that they actually had.
Exactly. So.
Yes.
Mark?
So we actually, several years ago, we conducted a survey through many of our customers, and we asked some basic questions. How important is lubrication overall and contamination control to machine reliability? Not surprisingly, 80-90% said, yeah, absolutely, it's 100%. It's really, really important. But then we went on to dive a little deeper. Have you achieved that in your plant? And if so, why? And if not, why haven't you? And the results really surprised us. We found that of the 90-some-odd% that recognized precision lubrication was important, less than 70% had done anything about it. Right? And when we started asking questions, it was three basic answers. The first one is, we don't know what it looks like. We don't know how to do it. We don't understand the importance of contamination control, good lubrication practices. The second answer, which was also kind of interesting, was we're too busy doing our daily jobs to focus on this, right? We know we need to make a change, but we just don't have the time. And then the third one is, to Bernie's point, was we don't have management buy-in. They don't understand. They don't have time to stop and listen and understand. They don't buy into the program. We don't get it funded. So we can try as hard as we can. We don't get it funded. But the key to succeeding with contamination control is all three of those, right? You've got to understand the importance, and again, as Bernie said, you've got to sell that message up and down the organization.
Sure.
You've got to make time. We're all busy, but you've got to make time to instigate good contamination control practices. And again, you've got to document, as Bernie said, you've got to document those cost savings, because the next time you go back for budget, you got to be at a point, well, last time you gave me $50,000 and we reduced downtime by $500,000. Right?
Yeah.
And that, that's where you're going to guarantee next time that you get the money, the funding for the next project. So
some of this is the human condition, it sounds, right?
Oh,
no one's going to argue diet and exercise is good. But I'd contend less than 70% of people would say, yeah, I'm good at diet and exercise.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
same thing. Yeah. So Chad, what do you think?
I think, what we run across is people, they're resigned to the fact that, we operate in dirty conditions. You talk about our conditions are the worst. You have no idea. You have no idea.
You hear that all the time, right?
Right.
You go to a plant. I had somebody tell me,
everyone's plant's the worst plant, right?
we crush rock for a living. What do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're in a sawmill. What do you expect? Of course, there's going to be sawdust flying everywhere. And so, we chuckle because we all hear that every time, especially with our sales team, when we talk about ISOClean, that's always that's like the wall that comes up immediately. It's like, oh, well, our conditions are the worst. There's nothing we can do. And they're resigned to the fact that, hey, we're just going to operate in this dirty
what it's going to be.
It's the way it is. And so what we have to do is the education piece and like what Mark was saying, documenting. And that's where we try to really help people and document what is it costing you today? What is this extra money that you're spending on lubricants and maintenance and parts? What if we could get rid of that? What if we, instead of, as I mentioned before, doing this maintenance every couple months, it's every couple years? What would that look like at your bottom line? And I think that's how you you get management and procurement buy-in, is you start documenting that, showing them what it's costing them today by operating without proper desiccant breathers, or taking the proper oil samples, or starting clean with the right lubricant. And then we show that progression that, hey, wear rates are going down and you're getting more life out of your equipment. And so that, that's what I think about when we talk about contamination. But yeah, it's a behavior change for a lot of these people. They've been accustomed to doing maintenance, and as I mentioned before, they're just resigned to the fact that, hey, this is the way it's always been. We can't do anything. So if we can come in and provide them a holistic solution and show them, hey, there is a better way, and then strip from the top down, whether it's the CEO or the tech on the floor, if we can make everybody's life a little easier, it's a win.
I love that. They say people only change for one of three reasons: crisis, profitability, or aspirations.
Yeah.
Right. Crisis, machines may be failing something, right? That's dirt.
Right.
Profitability, I think we've hammered on, the money that can be coming from that. But the aspirational side of things, some people, we just need to do better, because that's what's going to get us, over the hump or where we want to go. All right. So contamination control, where are these contaminants coming from? Common sources of contaminants. So, Mark, what do you think? Where's the problem starting?
Well, it all starts with the lubricant, right? So,
Sure.
Unless you're purchasing a pre-filtered oil, an IsoClean product, most new lubricants are not clean, right?
Sure.
Even if you get them in a new barrel, it's sealed. If it's not pre-filtered, an IsoClean product, it won't be clean enough. It won't be fit for service. So,
Now, we've been saying that for decades, but people
Yes, you and I
still
have, yeah.
absolutely go, what do you mean here? New oil does not mean that it's clean?
Exactly. I was looking at some oil samples very recently, and we looked at the sample from a 55-gallon drum, and if you look at the 14 and larger micron-sized particles, very clean. But there was a step change from 14 to 6, and it was pretty clear that lubricant had not been filtered below 12 microns during manufacturing and processing, right? So again, you've got to start with a clean lubricant, and that's where IsoClean comes into play. But after that, you've got to follow the progression of that lubricant throughout the plant, right? So it's great that we purchase clean lubricants, but where do you store and handle that barrel?
There you go.
How do you get it out of the barrel into the machine? When it's in the machine, how do you ensure that it's clean, right? So most of the contaminants from that point forward, after we've hopefully received clean oil, is literally from the plant environment, right? It's what we refer to as ingression. So whether it's, we're taking 20 gallons of oil out of the barrel, what replaces the 20 gallons of oil? 20 gallons of plant air. Or if we're draining a machine, we're draining the gearbox. Again, the 5 gallons of oil we drain out of the gearbox, 5 gallons of dirty air replaces it, right?
Right.
And then we think about intrusive services, right? Simple act of checking a level on a gearbox. We pull a dipstick.
That's
and
it.
We take a rag out of our pocket, we wipe the dipstick, level's good, put it back in again. What have you done? You've contaminated the system. So, the things that we always stress to our customers is you've got to look at the asset and think about what are all the things that gearbox, pump, hydraulic system needs, what are the PMs we need to do, and how can we do them without exposing that lubricant to the plant environment. So that includes level checks, oil sampling correctly, being able to drain oil, use offline filtration if that's appropriate.
That's right.
And then you got to think about internally generated, right? So
That's right.
Every time we generate internal wear, that's a contaminant, right? That contaminant is going to destroy the machine. It's going to start destroying the lubricant. And as that lubricant degrades, the lubricant itself becomes a contaminant.
That's right.
Right. So as those additives degrade, or as the base oil degrades, we're getting sludge and varnish and other contaminants, which cause more damage down the road. So you've got to start with the lubricant, and that's really important. But then you've got to look at every step of the process, and as much as you can prevent that contamination from getting in from the outside.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. Chad, anything to add with that?
What we see, what you mentioned about, Mark, you talk about the rag, made me think like what we see is companies that they're not focused on cleanliness, so they have the funnel or the can or
usually just one, right?
Right, exactly. I'm saying just one for a multitude of different lubricants, and that's why I laugh.
In another life, it was a detergent bottle or something else, right?
Exactly, a coffee can, whatever, wherever it was. So it's like I said, they're not putting the focus on there, and so that's how lubricants and how it gets dirty. But every time, as Mark said, you take the top off to check the level, it's getting in, dirt's getting in. when we would go look at the chain of custody from whenever a lubricant's made to the time it's delivered to a customer, it's touched somewhere between 7 to 8 different times by the time it leaves the plant.
I like this because Mark's basically saying from the plant forward, right? Receiving a lubricant, you're looking at it from back here when it's manufactured. So.
Right. Even us as Chevron, as we manufacture it, it gets manufactured, then it put in a truck, and then taken to the plant, or from the plant to the truck to the customer, pumped off at our distributor or marketer.
Sure.
By the time it gets to the end use customer, said multitude of times, and if they don't have the proper practices and protocols in place as far as handling, a lot of opportunity for dirt, air, water, whatever, to get into that lubricant. So, it's not just one point of ingression. You touched on a couple. There's a ton of different areas where dirt, contaminants can get into lubricant, but it is solvable using the practices with check fluid and desk case, and starting again with a clean lubricant. We can reduce that. So I don't want people to think it's overwhelming, that it's impossible. We're talking about the impossible here. It's definitely possible, but again, just having that mindset and the right practices, so you're not using the can or the funnel to handle your lubricants.
Yeah, and I like Mark's, we call it the dipstick hokey pokey, right? You take the dipstick out, put the dipstick in, right? I mean, that's exactly it.
Right. Yeah.
Bernie, what do you think?
Yeah. No. Exactly. I love what the themes that we're talking about here, because it is something that journey that is taking from source, from the refinery all the way through. It is passing through multiple steps, and from our perspective, what we like to do is like to have the tools put in people's hands where that they can measure it at different spots. So at some point in time that maybe if you're getting it off in the transfer, you can measure where that is, where you're at, and the next step along the line. So each one of them is an opportunity really to be able to zero in. It's a diagnostic tool where you can break your process down into various steps and be able to kind of zero in on that particular part that's going to give you the bang for the buck.
Yeah, that's right.
That particular one might be it might be just the transfer from from the drum into the machine, and obviously we've got the wherewithal within the products that are available out there to be able to do that. So we're trying to put the idea of having the ability to be able to look at it and the tools to be able to do it. So as somebody said, it's giving people that opportunity to make a difference.
That's it. Now, everything that we've been talking about here has been, kind of a holistic approach to contamination control. And I think it is worth mentioning and hearing from you guys. How are we actually going to get people to buy in on this? Because we've talked about management doesn't buy in, maybe someone doesn't understand the importance of it or anything like that. What are your bag of tricks? What are the things that you reach into and tell people this is why you should do it, this is how you should do it? So Chad, we'll start with you from the lubricant side of things.
Yeah, so for us, we have calculators that we use. So we have different calculators, and we ask questions of our customers. What are your different costs? What is labor costs? What is the particular equipment cost or parts cost? And we put these into these calculators to spit out a number. And as I mentioned earlier, what is it costing you every time this pump goes down? Because a lot of companies, they don't look at it in a big picture. They say, it goes down, but they're not considering, the cost of labor or bringing in outside maintenance or the number of widgets not being produced.
That's right.
Then what does that mean? Then you're backed up and you're not meeting the demands of the customer. And so then that's a bad PR hit. So we try to look at it big picture, get them to think about it, not just from a number standpoint, but also what does this really mean in real life to you if this piece of equipment goes down? And so that's where we try to really educate customers. We're not trying to say, come in and show them that, or be forceful in a way, or salesy in a way. We're trying to educate and show them, hey, this is what it's costing you today. This is the impact to your business, to your bottom line. And, we can help you make changes. It's like we take them to an area where they feel like, oh man, this stinks. What am I going to do? And we're like, hey, it doesn't have to be, we can help you, it doesn't have to be this way, we can help you, and put together this plan using our partners here to help them, show them that there's a better way to do it. But it's just the education piece in showing them, what does it mean to you by continuing to go down this path that you're going, and show them that there's a better way to do this.
Yep. I think that's good. I think it's interesting that you talk about the PR hit on something because they're not delivering products on time or maybe poor quality or something like that.
Right.
That's an interesting way to look at it. We often talk about the hidden cost of an oil change, or maybe it's the hidden cost of a filter change. And Mark, you're probably familiar with all that as well. There's all these ancillary costs, right. that people don't even think about. And the cost of contamination is very similar.
Well, we try to humanize it. You want to humanize it. And, a story I think about is one of our distributors talking to a bus company and saying, hey, how would you feel if your daughter or son was on this bus and it breaks down in the middle of the night, it's the middle of winter, stranded on the highway, cars going by, seeing your bus is broke down. Do you think they want to put their kids or their youth group or whatever on this bus? So it's trying to get them to think beyond just, I guess, numbers, but what is that human impact on something like that?
And that's a way. It's not just a machine. This is something that's transporting people or whatever it could be.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Bernie, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I like that idea, because I think that the idea of using the calculator to start off with is a great way addressing the management concerns, being able to take a look at it very systematically as far as what the cost of labor that might be involved, the cost of the hidden cost of the oil changes. A lot of those factors can be, if they're documented well, they're very powerful.
Right.
But every bit as powerful as what Chad's saying is the stories that you can kind of relate to,
right.
Of different people. And one of the things that just came up, actually just before it came down, is there's a local ice cream place, a truck that had, that found through analysis that they had the reefer was going on it. And I just think of all those kids that are sitting beside the sidewalk that are not getting their ice cream. And if you could convey that idea on the days that you're 100 degrees out, those are the types of things that I think that can resonate with people. And it's a little bit out there, but there's a lot of stories that I think that we can tell of experiences that we've had with people that are really able to kind of relate to the fact that, hey, maybe I can get home from my daughter's birthday party, and I'm not going to be working overtime trying to source a long forgotten part, in the system.
Why am I not surprised that your local ice cream truck does oil analysis? I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all.
I don't know, but these people, they do make very good ice cream too as well. So I'm a big fan.
Good enough. All right, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the mistake we often make is, in the world of lubrication, you and I talk to people, we talk Center Stokes, we talk PSI, ISO 4406 particle counts, we talk technical language. Yep. The challenge is that the people that get to make the decisions on whether we implement only talk one language. It's dollars and cents, right?
That's right.
So, we need to become conversant in talking that language. Yep. So if you think about like a capital project, for example, if you're a paper mill, you're going to put a new paper machine in, they're going to look at all of the costs, not just the hard costs, the soft cost as well, impact on other things that are going on in the mill. And they're going to accumulate all of those costs. They're going to look at the value, the benefit, what they're going to make over the next 3 to 5 years, right. And they could build out a robust business case, right? So what we like to do is take the same calculators that Chad referred to and then use those to turn them into a true business case, right? So we can say, hey, if you implement precision contamination control over the course of the next, say, 3 years, you're gonna eliminate, in today's dollars, net present value dollars, $2.5 million worth of losses, things that you've incurred over the course of the last 5 years.
There you go.
And it's going to cost you, let's say, $100,000 to implement. But if you look at that as an investment, I mean, you've done those as well, right? It's like Bitcoin, right? If you look at Bitcoin, it's 200% return over a year.
That's right.
That's the sort of return you get on contamination control. But you've got to build the business case. Otherwise, nobody's going to write a check for $100,000. You have to do the legwork first.
And obviously there's so many things, different studies, and depending upon the system that we pick. And I pick on hydraulics quite a bit, right? Because the impact of contamination in hydraulics is so high, and it's usually improving cleanliness by 1 unit improves reliability by 10 units. So a 10-to-1 ratio, I mean, in terms of cleanliness to output and everything else. And when you guys are focusing on contamination control, I mean, do you guys look at a particular system? Are you looking at multiple systems? I mean, where do you tell people to start when it comes to contamination control? So Bernie, maybe we'll start with you.
Where we like to try and do that discovery where we're finding those pain points.
Yep.
Where things are really going to be most dramatic. I mean, in some cases, it might not be an ISO count, although that's a very easy go-to, and there's a lot of people
Sure.
that are in the hydraulic space that have gone to it. There's companies that we know of that have created KPIs, metrics for performance appraisal based on their numbers that they're getting off of their hydraulic units.
That's right.
And I think it's good, but it isn't necessarily as strategic as it might be. Like if you're into one part of the country, it's a moisture prone area, maybe there's something else that you should be focused on to be able to get to that point. But there should be some metric, is what we feel should be pulled out and looked at. And there are certain things. Maybe there's some combinations of wear debris that could be pulled up that you want to focus on. And again, it becomes, obviously you don't want to make it too sophisticated, but it's got to be simple enough for people to pick out and say, oh yeah, hey, we're doing better in this particular area. And in some respects, the other part of it, which I think Mark had picked on or drew on, was the idea that there is a success and there's money is involved, and it's nice to be in a position where we could say, oh, in this particular process, we're supporting, maybe the plant is supporting a community effort. Maybe it's the baseball league. These are things that we're doing that make this happen. And that is so vital, I think, at this particular point in time, is to let people know that, their efforts make a bigger difference beyond, just even their department or their individual paycheck. It's a broader picture that I think that you can draw on. So
That's very good. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, we always look at kind of a parallel path, right? So for me, ensuring that the lubricant that goes into the machine is clean and dry to start with is really important, right? Because we will say how that lubricant is stored and handled. If you only have one storeroom, that affects every machine. It doesn't matter whether it's the most critical or least critical. Lubricants come out of that storeroom and go in every single machine in the plant. So start with improving storage and handling, and guarantee that the lubricant you get in is clean, and that when you take it from storage and goes into the machine, it at least arrives at the machine in a clean environment, right? But then in parallel to that, oftentimes plants want to see what's the benefit, right?
Yeah,
and if you try and take too broad an approach and you create a project that's hundreds of thousands of dollars and many man-months of work, you're not likely to get success. So we like to focus, as Bernie said, on bad actors and specific, we'd like to say machines that have ate your lunch, right? The things that have caused problems over the last 6 months. And let's prove it out. Let's take a deep dive with contamination control in that particular asset or class of assets. You said hydraulics, that's a great place to start, because we all know 80-90% of the problems are right there, right?
Yeah.
So if we can prove it out, that really gives some legs to the rest of the program, because if we succeeded over here,
That's it.
if we deploy that everywhere else, we're going to see exactly the same success. So parallel path, clean oil to the machine, and then focus on the bad actors.
I like it. Chad?
Yeah, like Mark's saying, hydraulics, it is kind of like a little bit of the low-hanging fruit that you can go to. We know what impact contaminants and the lubricants have, especially like on servo valves and how sensitive they are. But what we try to do is we want to understand, what is the OEM requirement? What is the cleanliness standard that OEM has for that piece of equipment? And make sure we start there. And that's part of the assessment that we do when we start out and go into a customer, is get the lay of the land. What's the equipment? As you mentioned, what are the problem children or the problem child that we can help you with, and go from there, and then understand, okay, what's the cleanliness level that piece of equipment needs, and then we put together the plan and this is how we're going to get to that cleanliness level. Again, so they understand what does that mean to them in as far as the life of that equipment, getting that, we're not going to extend it beyond what the OEM says, the life of it that is, but we're going to get you to the maximum life as close as possible if you follow our plan, use the clean lubricants. If what does that mean to you if we just get 2 times or 3 times more than of the life that you're getting today? So we put together that plan, but we really want to understand what's the equipment, where are they having problems, and then we figure out what is that plan of attack that we can implement to help them succeed.
Gotcha. Now, this is going to dovetail with that question a little bit. Who are the people that you worked with that have gotten it? The success stories, the ones that you have seen turn around. We joked earlier that everyone says that their plant is the worst plant, that
Right.
That'll never work in this environment. I've been to cement companies, I've been to food and beverage companies, places where, it's a harsh environment, but they've figured it out.
Right.
They've had success with contamination control. So Chad, where have you been?
Yeah, one of the things that one of the stories or examples that stand out to me is a company. It's a plastic injection molding, and that can get dirty there, and
Lots of cycle times.
lots of cycle times, a lot of wear and tear on the equipment. They were using our IsoClean product, and we see this a lot. Change in management, and management comes in and says, "Hey, what is this IsoClean stuff? Why are we paying for this? What is this?" And luckily and smartly, we had been doing oil analysis through our Lube Watch Oil analysis program. So we were able to benchmark wear rates prior to IsoClean and then when we started with IsoClean. So whenever the management was looking to make a change, we could show them, hey, we're looking at like anywhere between 50 to 80% reduction in wear rates in the different metals using IsoClean. So it went from a story of potentially losing a customer to a story of why aren't our other locations using IsoClean? Because we were able to your point, Mark, make dollars and cents of it. Show them, hey, what is this costing you today? This is the savings that we can provide you. So, stories like that jumps out at me when we talk about successful contamination control, putting in desiccant breathers, doing the right oil sampling, taking the consistent oil sampling and measuring that so that we can set those benchmarks. And I think for any company that's wanting to get started down this path, you have to set those benchmarks. I think that's the starting point for this, so you can go back and measure how are you doing, are you being successful, and then make any necessary changes along the way.
Needed from there.
Yeah.
I agree. Bernie?
Yeah, just one example that came up not so long ago was a company, it was a Ferry, and it was doing, they had the safety aspects of the passengers going back and forth. They had a hydraulic power unit, and they were taking samples off that were not so good, and they had, there was a lot of publicity on it. There's a lot of visibility, and obviously the safety part of it is critical. So what happened was that, and again, it was just the way that they were taking it. They were doing a drop tube, sucking it off the bottom, coming up with some nasty results, and it freaked people out. So they had said, well, okay, we've got to do something about it, and so at the end of it, happily they just put on some valves on the 2 hydraulic power units, and they found out, hey, it's all good. So it's a happy story. You always like to have happy stories at the end of it, where you've been able to kind of provide that peace of mind, the success of being able to put it on, because a lot of times we try and we have that tendency to focus on the negative part of it, like, okay, hey, we've got these problems and so forth. But the majority, a lot of the samples that are going to be coming off aren't necessarily would indicate a condition that's not necessarily critical. So it's okay, but it's an opportunity to do better.
True.
And so people like to hear good news. They don't really like to hear a lot of bad news. So we like to be in a position where we're saying, if you're doing this, you're clap yourself on the back because you're doing the right thing. You're making sure that you focus your energies on the stuff that really counts. So if you've got a problem, spend your time, zero in on that, and make sure that it gets fixed. And that's part of obviously, I think what the whole process is, a lot of times people will go through, they'll do a lot of the things that are right about doing it, but they've got to take that remedial action to be able to make sure that, maybe there is a pump that's going out. Maybe it's a good idea to get a replacement in and put it in so that it's not going to cause the line to, go down at whatever $5,000, $1 million a day type of thing that could be critical. So
that's good. Mark, success stories?
Yeah, I in my role, I get a chance to work with a lot of customers and implement solutions and create success stories, right? But the one that really sticks out to me is a large automotive manufacturer. Critical application is stamping press, right? Stamping out body parts. We installed a simple offline filtration system, desiccant breather, improved their new fluid cleanliness. Over the course of, I'm going to say 3 months, their 4-micron counts dropped by about 98%, which is great, right? We all understand that's a good thing. But then when we looked at monetizing that, this particular facility had what's called a FRACAS system, failure reporting and corrective action system. Essentially, if the machine goes down, somebody has to say, well, that 5 minutes of downtime was related to X. So we were able to actually capture failure events due to lubrication downtime before and after filtration. And when we looked at it, again, 90-some-odd% reduction in particle count, but overall, across all the stamping presses, we saw a 52% reduction in lubrication-related downtime, right? And when you monetize that, I'm not allowed to tell you what the number is because it was
significant.
It was millions and millions and millions of dollars across just a few stamping presses. For me, that's great. Management loved that success, but I think what really made that story good for me was the gentleman that actually was involved in that from the automotive plant. He was a maintenance technician. He came to a workshop that we provided for our customers, came to a workshop, went back and said, oh, you know what, I'm going to implement this stuff on my stamping presses. And Chad was actually promoted 3 times. He's now manager of the battery plant.
Oh, man.
So, business success for the company, the automotive manufacturer, personal success for the person that actually made it happen. So,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, there's lots of stories like that. But for me, when you can show success both in terms of money, dollars and cents, and somebody's family has a better life, that's really special.
A win-win.
Absolutely.
That's an awesome story. Yeah. All right. At this time, we're going to go to question and answer session. Thank you for those that have submitted questions ahead of time. Thank you for those that have been putting them in the chat. But we're going to start taking some of those that have been submitted.
What criteria should be considered for desiccant breather selection?
All right, so the question around desiccant breathers, what criteria? Mark, this is very much in your wheelhouse. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, so when we look at desiccant breathers, first thing is we need to understand the application, right? So what is generally speaking, we'll start with the maximum airflow rate. So if it's like a hydraulic system, for example, where the oil level is changing, we need to think about that and make sure we have adequate airflow. We'll sort of think about the life of the breather. So if you select a desiccant breather correctly, it should last anywhere from 9 to 12 months. If you're not getting 9 months of life out of a breather, you made the wrong choice, right?
Gotcha.
You need to choose a different type. But when we look at adding a desiccant breather to a machine, we typically want to look at more than just putting a breather there, right? Because we want to be able to check the level, get rid of that dipstick I talked about. Yep. We check the level. We need to be able to take an adequate oil sample. We need to be able to drain the oil and fill the oil without getting intrusive to the machine itself. So we always look at providing what we call modification plans, equipment modification plans that allow you to do everything you need to do. Check and change the oil, take an oil sample, check the level. And that does include a desiccant breather, but you want to make sure that you look at the process holistically. Again, otherwise, when you start with clean lubricant, by the time it gets in the machine, it's dirty and you've wasted everything you've done to that point. So breathers is a great, very cheap investment, but you've got to look at the whole process.
That's it. That's good. All right.
Why are new lubricants often not considered to be clean?
All right. Why are new lubricants not considered clean? Chad?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, from the beginning, whenever they're produced and then time they get transferred in a bulk truck and get to a distributor, and then say a distributor puts it into a drum and gets it to you as the end use customer, it's touched, as I said, could potentially up to 8 times, 7 or 8 times. And what we've been talking about, it's these microscopic small little particles. Every time that transfer happens, you're opening the window for these microscopic particles, dirt, dust, air, water, whatever, to get into your lubricant. And so that's why, when it's delivered, we deliver it at typical cleanliness level. It's not maybe the cleanliness level that certain OEMs require. And it's not just a Chevron thing. It's all other oil companies go through this. So it doesn't matter if you're buying Chevron or another brand, it's going to all arrive typically at a cleanliness level that's probably not optimal for the equipment. And a lot of it is just around the amount of times that it's transferred and trucked and shipped, and whether it's rail car or truck or whatever, however it's getting to you, those containers may not be the cleanliness, so there's opportunity for dirt again and contaminants to get involved in that oil. And so that's the reason lubricants typically don't arrive at, say 18, 16, 13. I know it's a popular ISO cleanliness code out there. It's just because of all the different variables and factors in play.
Yep, makes sense to me, absolutely.
Can you offer some suggestions for oil sampling in vacuum pumps?
All right, oil sampling, vacuum pumps. Bernie, this sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Yes, it's always a challenge, I think, for a lot of folks to be able to kind of look at weighing up the difference between kind of the aspect of convenience and getting the very best sample that you can get, which is going to be pivoting on obviously a number of things. What are the problem areas? What are the problem pieces of equipment that's going to be there? But just on what Chad had just finished saying, the idea of just opening up a system in a lot of cases can be actually more detrimental than the benefits that you get from the whole process. So what you're doing is you're doing a lot of the good work that's going up to that particular point, and then you're negating it basically by opening up the system or leaving it exposed and so forth, whether it's dipstick or whatever. So the idea of getting the very best samples, best practice is getting the active oil, getting it as close as possible to the active oil and getting it off as quickly as possible off to the lab so that they're taking a look at fresh samples and being able to do the work that they do. And the labs, I'm always amazed at the level of sophistication, the growing sophistication that the labs have of being able to make good decisions or, helping out making decisions that are actionable by customers.
Absolutely. I agree. That's usually when people do oil analysis, they miss that step so often, right? Good samples. So, all right. Well, unfortunately, we're a little low on time. So if you've submitted a question, don't worry. Someone will get back to you. I mean, this is moderated, so we'll make sure that people are answering question. If you haven't gotten an answer already, you will. But now, guys, we're going to do some just closing statements. If you feel like there's something that you wanted to get across that just didn't come across yet, or kind of who you are, what you do, how they get a hold of you, or anything else. And Mark, we'll kind of start with you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to the Chevron tagline, which is start clean, stay clean.
There
right?
you go.
That's really the mantra that we bring to the table, right? So making sure that you can store and handle lubricants correctly, pre-filter them if necessary, transfer them from the machine, from storage, to the machine, and when they're in the machine, keep them clean. So
there you go.
that's really where we focus all of our efforts, and as we all know, it's the biggest part of any lubrication program, making sure that lubricant is clean in the asset. And that's really a strong part of our proposition.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you,
Bernie.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add to that, because I think as Mark pointed out, that journey as the oil is going through the various processes should be monitored at each step along the way to really be able to get the best success that you can offer to the organization. So if you can zero in on these particular areas that really need attention and be happy that you've been able to do the job on the other aspects, it's basically job well done, and it translates to the success and the profitability of the organization.
Perfect. Thank you, Bernie. And then Chad, will give you kind of the last word here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So yeah, as Mark said, Chevron, we believe in starting clean and staying clean. And that's why we have these great partnerships with Deskcase and Check Fluid, because we see as you start out with Chevron, IsoClean lubricants, but then you need to do the proper oil sampling and taking those right samples with check fluid, and then make sure you've got the right storage and handling and desiccant breathers to ensure that your equipment is going to get the maximum value. We understand that you've spent a lot of money on that equipment, so we want you to get that maximum value out of that equipment. That's why we want to be able to provide at Chevron a holistic solution to our customers and make them successful. So if they're successful, we're successful. And so we want to make sure that as we come in to assess your situation, that we understand what are you trying to achieve as an organization and how can we help you get to those goals with these partnerships that we have with Check Fluid and Descase.
That's perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for attending, coming in here and talking, sharing stories, tips, and tricks. It's been fantastic. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure all of our attendees have enjoyed the conversation as well. And for you attendees, thank you so much for registering. Thanks for those that have submitted questions. There'll be a link following this that you can follow to see some of the solutions that we've talked about here. And once again, I'd just like to thank you, and we'll see you on the next Noria webinar.